You are sitting by a fire. No one is speaking, and yet everyone around you understands exactly what is happening. A hand touches a shoulder. A glance lingers half a second too long. Someone shifts closer to the flames, and the whole group shifts with them. For roughly 95% of the time modern humans have existed on this planet, this was communication. Not words, not grammar, not sentences, just bodies, rhythm, and touch doing the work that language does for you today. Your ancestors didn't wait for language to survive. They survived first. Language came later, almost as an afterthought. How does a species build cities, raise children, coordinate hunts, and mourn its dead without a single word? The answer is stranger than you'd expect, and it's still running quietly underneath every conversation you have. Start with your body. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying primate social groups, and he noticed something odd. Chimpanzees and other primates use physical grooming, picking through each other's fur, to build trust and rank within the group. It feels good. It releases endorphins. It says, without a single sound, I am safe with you.
But grooming has a limit. You can only groom one animal at a time. As early human groups grew larger, Dunbar argued, something had to replace one-on-one grooming with something that could reach many people at once. He called it the social brain hypothesis. Bigger groups meant bigger problems of trust, and trust needed a faster tool than fingers combing through fur. That tool, Dunbar suggested, might have started as vocal grooming. Not words, sounds, laughter, humming, rhythmic chatter around a fire that felt like being touched without anyone touching anyone. Think about that for a second. The first conversations your ancestors had may have sounded less like a debate and more like a lullaby. There's more evidence stacked underneath this idea, and it comes from an unlikely place: babies.
The anthropologist Dean Falk studied a strange shift in early human life. As our ancestors began walking upright, mothers could no longer cling to fur the way other primate infants do, because upright bodies don't have the thick body hair for a baby to grip. So mothers had to put their infants down, sometimes just for a moment, to gather food or use their hands for anything at all. A baby left on the ground, out of physical contact, does what babies still do now. It cries. And a crying baby in a landscape full of predators is a death sentence for the whole group. Falk proposed that mothers developed a substitute for physical touch, a running vocal signal, a soft, constant hum or coo that told the baby, I am still here, even when hands weren't touching skin. She called this motherese, and some researchers see it as one of the deep roots of vocal communication itself. Not information, reassurance, presence, carried on sound instead of skin. So far, you have two separate threads: grooming replaced by group sound, touch replaced by voice, for the sake of a single infant. Now picture them merging around a fire, and you start to see the shape of something bigger. The archaeologist Stephen Mithen took this further with an idea he called Hmmmm, a term built from the words holistic, manipulative, multimodal, musical, and mimetic. Mithen argued that before language split into words with fixed meanings, early humans communicated in whole, musical, gesture-rich phrases. A single rising tone paired with a specific movement of the arm might mean something like, danger is close, move now, all at once, the way a dog's growl carries a complete message without needing separate words for warning and threat and leave. This is not guesswork built from nothing. It's built from bones, brains, and behavior. The hyoid bone, a small horseshoe-shaped bone in the throat that supports speech, appears in Neanderthal skeletons in a form strikingly close to our own. That tells researchers the physical hardware for complex vocalizing was present long before we have any solid proof of full grammar-based language. So let's reconstruct a single evening using what the evidence gives us. The sun is dropping toward the horizon.
your group returns from foraging. No one announces this with a sentence.
Instead, there's a rhythm to it, a returning call passed person to person, rising and falling, that everyone instantly reads as, "We made it back, we are safe." Around the fire, an elder begins a low, repeated hum. Others fall into it. This isn't idle noise. It's the group's nervous system settling, the same way your own shoulders drop when a friend sits close and says nothing at all. A child stumbles and starts to cry. A parent doesn't need to say, "It's okay." A hand moves to the child's back. The pitch of the parent's voice drops and softens. The child's crying slows before a single explainable word is exchanged, because none was needed. Someone spots movement at the edge of camp. A sharp, short sound cuts through the humming. Everyone's head turns at once. No sentence was built. No noun, no verb, just an alarm, mimetic and immediate, understood by every single member of the group in a fraction of a second. This is where the twist comes in, and it's one most people never expect. We tend to assume language made humans smart, but the evidence suggests something closer to the opposite order. Bonding came first. Rhythm, touch, shared sound, and shared attention built trust strong enough to hold large groups together. And it was that trust, that social stability, which eventually gave early humans the safety and spare mental capacity to start experimenting with something as risky and abstract as symbolic words.
Symbolic thought itself shows up early, too, in ways separate from spoken language. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists have uncovered deliberately engraved pieces of ochre dating back roughly 100,000 years. Geometric patterns scratched with intention, not for survival, but seemingly for meaning. That's a mind already capable of symbols, potentially tens of thousands of years before we have firm evidence of complex spoken grammar. The symbols may have come before the sentences. In other words, your ancestors weren't waiting around, mute and confused for language to arrive and rescue them. They were already fully expressive, fully understood, fully connected, just not through words. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. That ancient system never disappeared. It's still running under everything you do.
When a friend is grieving and you don't know what to say, so you just sit next to them, that's not a failure of language. That's 100,000 years of a system older than words doing exactly what it was built to do. When a room falls quiet and everyone can feel the tension without anyone naming it, that's the same rhythm your ancestors read around a fire. When a baby stops crying the instant it's picked up, before a single soothing word has been spoken, you're watching Dean Falk's ancient substitute for touch, still working, unchanged in real time. You've been taught to think of communication as something built entirely from words, sentences, vocabulary, but underneath every conversation you have, there is still a much older layer running quietly in the background. A hand on a shoulder, a shift in tone, a rhythm that says, "I am here," before any sentence gets the chance to. You sit by a fire. No one is speaking. And somehow, everyone around you still understands exactly what is happening. Some things, it turns out, were never meant to need words at all.